more than likely, my top five are better than all of his top five.
Hello and welcome to Shirt Swap with me, Darren Ben, a show where I chat to current and former players about the shirts they swapped throughout their careers and 3 defining stories behind them. And this week I chat to the former Ipswich, Crystal Palace and Newcastle midfielder and a personal good friend of mine, Darren Ambrose. Daz, thanks for joining us. We've known each other a long time.
A very long time. I believe you were best man at my wedding, and I'm not sure I was best man at your wedding.
Anyway, number 8, it's a recurring theme. So let's get started. So Daz, let's start with the shirt itself. Obviously, immediately when you look at this kit, you think of Istanbul. I think about when I absolutely ripped them apart at the Valley.
We beat them 2-0 at the Valley.
2-0.
You scored?
Got one, the first one.
Who scored the other?
Luke Young scored the second one.
I mean, look, well, 0-0 away from home as well, so we got the better of them that year.
I mean, obviously people are going to speak about Istanbul, the comeback, what a performance. But in terms of Liverpool on the day, you come up against them directly. And how good do you rate Steven Gerrard in terms of Premier League midfielders?
One of the best, if not the best, to play in the Premier League from midfield. He was just, it weren't so much his ability on the ball, it was what he brought to the team. You know, he was like a leader, and you could tell even he weren't old when we played him. He weren't one of the senior pros, but he was a out and out leader. And I always remember the link up with Gerard Owen. You know, the balls he used to put in and Owen used to score. But coming up directly, look, fierce, fiery, strong, quick, would make the box. Once he made the box, obviously you're trying to make the box the other side. He's there again.
I always found Gerrard. I mean, listen, Gerrard is what you call an outstanding world-class player. But I always felt he had a little bit extra at Anfield. Like I felt like he could run further, run quicker, was more powerful.
He's an absolute fan's favourite, and I think the fans being such on his side would create that extra yard of pace, extra bit of physicality against the opponent. So yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, some of the iconic goals this guy scored, I mean, it was just credit to us that we kept him quiet on the day, to be honest. In terms of the team itself, I mean, Xabi Alonso to coming on.
Oh.
I mean, we talk about players like Scholes that you can't get the ball off them. He was exactly the same. No matter how tight, how many players were around him, he would always find them intricate passes. And I mean, you obviously played with him at England. What was he like to play and train with England?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he was one of them that kind of made me, training-wise, have to lift my standards. Coming back to Charlton, I mean, he trained like he played 100 miles an hour, good quality on the ball, wanted to win the five-a-sides, he wanted to win the possession. And arguably, I said he would get in my all-time team of players that I played with because of his hunger, his drive. When
you went to play with him, I noticed when you come back, you upped it in training. Not to say you were poor in training, but you upped it in training. Was that because of him and how he showed you how to train?
That was him, because it wasn't so much he showed me how to train, but he showed me how important it was to be intent and to train like he was going to play in a match. And obviously you saw it with his performances. I felt like, well, and more so from my position where I'm playing as a centre forward, in training, you know, sometimes you're doing finishing sessions, you might muck around a little bit. He was one of the ones where I saw him try to, well, I can't do this. Every time I've finished in training, when you see it, proper, and that's probably because of the standards that he set for me in training. And as you said there, if he was picking an all-time Premier League 11, would he get in it?
Yeah, he would, yeah, definitely. Number 8, midfield. Maybe captain as well for me.
That was good, Daz, but would he get in ahead of this guy? To start with a shirt again, number 8, recurring theme. Gold badges, obviously previously Premier League champions. Chelsea.
Centenary shirt as well.
Centenary. So why have you chose this shirt?
Well, to be honest, I chose Frank Lampard over Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard 3, Lampard 2, because I kind of not modelled myself on Frank Lampard, but I was you know me, I was a goal scorer in midfielder, yeah, shoot on sight. I always come up through the youth team wanting to make the box and get goals, and I just felt if anyone that I would look up to would be Frank Lampard.
Listen, you're doing yourself a disservice there, because you sometimes in the youth team used to shoot from about 35 yards, which is nowhere near the box.
Yeah.
So you need to try and get yourself in the box.
No, look, you know me more than anyone. I used to love scoring, I used to love shooting, and in terms of a midfield goal scorer, there's no one better. Even when I was in the first team for Newcastle, for Charlton, I would look at and study his game and how he arrived in the box late and see if I could obviously replicate that.
I bet the best goal of your career is better than the best goal of his career.
More than likely, my top 5 are better than all of his top 5. No, but look, what a shirt to have. Like I said, they were currently champions. They went on to win the league as well. And
what was the score when you swapped with Lampard in this one?
Yeah, we didn't lose. It was 1-1. And Marcus Bent scored the goal. I think he come on. I got an assist, which
I think got the wrong Bent, mate.
I'm buzzing with. You played up front with Dennis Rommedahl, I believe.
Yeah.
Absolute quickest player I played with.
Hands down for me as well, he's the fastest player I've ever seen.
I don't know if you remember, now I'm going to say this story, I don't know if you remember, pre-season, we had to get in threes. And me and you were obviously always in partnership and together. And Rommedahl was part of our three, and we was doing sprints. Now, I wasn't obviously the quickest player. I weren't no slouch, but we was doing strides across the box. And me and you, I mean, I was going 100% full out, and you was probably 90, 85%. He's jogging next to us. Jogging next to us, like just having a chat about what we was doing the night before and that. And I can hardly speak. I'm sprinting, and I just remember that and just thought this guy is something else.
Do you know what? I think he always used to give Ashley Cole a problem. I remember speaking to Ashley Cole about it, and it didn't really matter with Rommedahl, even if he had a bad touch, because he was that quick.
Yeah.
He could just get after it anyway.
Yeah.
So what was it like coming up directly against Frank Lampard?
A little bit different to Steven Gerrard, more so that he just wanted to make the box. He wasn't that interested in getting back and defending, because he had the teams, Makaleli, SEM, players like that in and around him to help out, but he just wanted to make the box. And for me, I was the player who wanted to make the opposite box, so it was quite difficult. So he would always let me go, and he could afford to do that in the Chelsea team because he had them players we mentioned, but I couldn't really afford to let him go. It was tough because, believe it or not, he had a lot of energy as well, and he would just constantly make the box. And you know, more often than not, if he gets a chance, he's going to score, and it would be solely down to me because I would be up against him directly.
Where does he rank Frank Lampard in terms of Premier League midfielders?
I mean, look, he's up there. He's up there with Gerrard. The three I always think about: Gerrard, Lampard, and Paul Scholes. You played with him with England. You trained with him. Yeah. Similar to Gerrard?
Well, he never really spoke to me.
Oh, really? Was he? How come? Was it like Chelsea, Chelsea group?
A little bit, but I just didn't really interact with him as much as I did, say, Gerrard and stuff like that, to be fair. So, but listen, I'm sure he's a great guy.
I've heard he was professional, though.
Yeah, he was
one
professional.
Of those? And keep himself to himself?
He kept himself to himself. Like, he was professional, but in terms of standards in training, he was good, but he wasn't Steven Gerrard. But listen, he's up there. For the amount of goals that he did score, he's certainly a Premier League legend. So one man that did play this day that I want to speak about, Hernan Crespo. He started up front with Idogo Johnson. I mean, I've never seen a centre forward with movement like it. If he was playing in today's game, VAR would have a field day with him because he always ran that fine line where he'd be offside. Then at the very last minute, he'd dip his toe back onside and get in behind, and defenders could never mark it. And I remember watching him thinking, I wonder if I can add that to my game. But to be fair, I ended up offside more than not because I couldn't time it properly. But so we've had Gerrard at number 3, Lampard at number 2. So let's see who's number 1. So obviously your number 1, as we can see, is Wayne Rooney. So if we go onto the shirt itself, when I see the shirt, the one thing I think of is the absolute rocket that he smashes into the top corner. I mean, what a goal. And before we get into obviously the conversation, is that probably the best goal you've seen scored live?
Apart from my own, yeah, of course.
Hey, that's a fair point, that. That's a fair point, that.
Yeah, look, it was incredible to just witness it. Kind of spoiled my day because I obviously scored the goal there. I mean, you can't see it obviously because you can't feel it down the camera, but it feels awful. It's a horrible shirt, and I don't know if that's just me being bitter that he ruined my day. I don't know. I
mean, what was it like coming up against Wayne Rooney at that time? Because I'd probably say he wasn't at the peak of his powers, but he was certainly on his way. Yeah,
I mean, if I remember rightly, we done a lot about Wayne Rooney before the game. Obviously, I wasn't directly against him because I think I was playing wide in that game and he was up front for them. And I believe Stephen Carr was man marking him. I think he had a job of man marking him. And I mean, it's a famous goal. He was having a little row with a ref. I say little row, that's tongue in cheek because he was going absolutely crazy. I was quite close and I could hear everything was going on. He turned round, I think it was Peter Ramage, and he hates me mentioning this, Peter Ramage, and every time I put the goal or someone, he's always like, oh, let the goal go. He heads it up in the air, and the connection, you could hear the connection, and there's a picture of him scoring and volleying it, and I'm behind him with just a sheer look of terror that he's about to ruin my day. And if there was ever a moment on a football pitch that as an opposing player I could have clapped, I would have done.
I mean, how good was that United team? I mean, you talk about Giggs started, Rooney, Rio, Keane, they all started. You had CR7 coming off the bench.
Fantastic team. I remember I think it was that game. It was Roy Keane.
Sorry, you know you said CR7 come on after about 30 minutes. He wasn't at the peak of his powers yet, was he?
No, I think it was very early on in his time now. It might have been his first season. You could already see what an incredible player he was. I don't know if you remember, I scored a goal at the Valley against Man United. You remember because you say you assist. It was a 1-2 from about 30 yards.
Hey, listen, if I don't lay it off, you don't score.
He's been claiming assists all this time. But yeah, I've hit a left foot and it was a great goal. And then we went up to Old Trafford that year and I've done the same kind of thing. Hit a left foot shot and I think it was Van der Sar plucked it out the top corner and pushed it wide. Cristiano Ronaldo runs up to me and's like, I was like at the Valley, that was like at the Valley. And I just thought, wow, this guy just loves football.
Funny to say, because I caught him at the peak of his powers because I was at Spurs at the time and we played at Old Trafford and we went 2-0 up at half time and we ended up getting beat 5-2 second half. And I think that was the game. Rooney played up front, he scored a couple. Ronaldo played up front, I think he scored a couple. Berbatov played and Tevez. And all they had was Scholes and Carrick in the middle of the park just going,
all they needed.
Boom.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was amber, but that was when Ronaldo was at the peak of his powers. But you speak about Roy Keane, I know Roy really well, had him at Aston Villa.
Real tough, and he seemed to just run. I know he was the captain, captain of Man United, but he used to just run the whole pitch. Now I'm saying that because there was a moment in this game actually that the game I scored in, and I was a bit giddy. I was young, so I was trying my hardest, and I was all over him, my arms around him, and that. And he threw me an elbow, and he caught me right. I think I had a cut lip and claret all over me chin. And refs called us in, and I've gone, ref, like he's elbowed me in the face. And Roy Keane's turned to me and the ref and gone, well, what do you expect? He was all over me. And I'm thinking, brilliant, he's just admitted to elbow in the face. And the ref's turned to me and gone, what do you expect? You was all over him. He didn't even get the card out or nothing. And I'm sat there with blood hanging down my blooming chin. So yeah.
Where does this guy rank in terms of all-time Premier League players? No, what, that's a bit unfair. Let's go English Premier League players, because the first two were English. Where would he be?
Number one.
Number one. But you're a big Paul Gascoigne fan, so you're putting him ahead of Gascoigne.
I am, yeah. I loved Gascoigne, and he was very similar in terms of impact that he made and what he did for not so much his team, but what he did around football and English football. But this guy was something else. And again, we both got to see him in the peak of his powers. You obviously played with him with England, where he was tremendous, but to be all-time English goalscorer, all-time Man United goalscorer, you can't really get better than that.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And as I said, he had this annoying habit of telling me he was going to do something and then doing it.
Now, I heard a story once you told about a crossbar.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing. So that's when, before St George's Park was built, we used to do our internationals. We'd start at the Grove and train at Arsenal's training ground. I remember we just finished doing a possession and was walking over to the five-a-side. And he's gone, Bentley, like, I'm going to hit that crossbar. He's got boys back 50 yards or whatever. He said, I'm going to hit the crossbar. I went, oh, okay. Yeah, but I'm not going to hit it. It's going to hit the underside of the bar, bounce down, and then go in the roof of the net.
He didn't.
So
really?
I promise you. So I went, Rooney, whatever, rolled it down, bing. Honestly, underside of the bar, bong, bong, in. And the thing is though, most people would run away, celebrate. He just turned around to me and went, like, laughed. And then
that's incredible.
Well, I mean, Alan Shearer started the game, but Patrick Kluivert came off the bench. Now he's talking about an absolute Barcelona legend. I mean, like, what was he like?
Yeah, and again, he was coming to the end of his career at Newcastle, and I get asked the question a lot: who's the best player you've ever played with?
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
I say after Darren Ben.
Oh, thank you.
It's Patrick Kluivert, and like I said, he was at the end of his career, and I say that as a midfield player that liked to make runs forward, he was just something else. The touch he had, you could fire it in at him, and he would just bring it out of the air any angle. I remember once making a run off him, and the ball didn't come. And I'm throwing my arms up, as sometimes I used to do. Turn back, the ball was where I should have been, running. And I'm thinking, how has he done that?
Yeah.
And he come up to me and said, come up at half time, like, don't ever throw your arms up at me and don't ever stop running. I will always find you.
Do you know, I always remember you telling me one thing about Patrick Kluivert, is that it didn't matter how hard you bang the ball into him on the edge of the box, his touch was always just perfect.
How hard, high angle, foot, knee, chest, head, just absolute perfect touch.
Thanks, Dads. Some incredible shirt, some incredible stories. Absolutely loved it. Thanks for watching Shirt Swap. Hit like and subscribe, and we'll be back with some more Shirt Swaps very soon. Peace.